So yeah, we were really excited to be here today and talk about what we think are some of the best kept secrets to leadership. Diane, thank you for the introduction and for having us here today. Actually, I know she introduced Amanda Hayes. My husband's last name is Hayes, actually, so it kind of works. Emma and I have known each other for 15 odd years. We met on a recruiting trip. We've been friends for a very long time. Emma, the manager of Chelsea Ladies. I wanted to introduce her and actually tell you guys what I think is one of Emma's greatest skills as a leader is her ability to build a vision, create a vision, and then clearly explain what that vision is and enroll people around her in being part of that vision and wanting to succeed along the way. So Emma's been an inspiration to me for many, many years, and I think that's an area of leadership, is an area where I'm excited to hear from her and share some of our stories today together.
Well, I don't think you should be saying that, because if she told you the real truth about our first meeting when I used to work for a school called Iona College.
You own a college?
And I used to hear that all the time. It makes my dad chuckle still so often. But we had the recruiting budget that most people may have in this room. So of course I sponged off of NYU when she was the head coach there. And our first real meeting was me being a little thirsty in the middle of the night at Rhode Island and drinking her contact lenses. And she couldn't drive home.
It's true.
So I had to drive her home all the way back to New York City, a 5-hour drive off the back of drinking her contact lenses. And it has to be said, there was a small window when I thought, can I actually see out of the back of my head? I had that moment. But, you know, Amanda, as she's mentioned, we've known each other for 15 years. And we were those two fresh-faced kids coming into convention with huge backpacks, which I'm still carrying, I must add, and going into the room and talking about how we were going to conquer convention and that we wanted to become the very best at whatever we were going to be in our careers. And I think it's fair to say we've done quite well with what we're doing. And Amanda equally has been a huge inspiration for me, because she's one of the most innovative people I know, and I often see this with the best leaders. I've been waking up this morning to a pair of Snapchat glasses. Spectacles, you know, I mean, how many of you know about Snapchat spectacles? Yeah, this is what you come to expect with Amanda. She's one of the most innovative people I know. She's a fantastic public speaker. Importantly, she's really good at performing under pressure. You know, I've seen her go from, you know, all the way through the ranks to becoming the president and having to manage, you know, tremendous schedules, and being able to produce with so much under duress and stress is something that I've always looked upon in a really good way. And I think there's probably been huge parallels with our careers, albeit they're in different directions, but we usually end up on the same table, which I think is probably because we share a lot of similar traits about what we do in leadership.
Well, not only that, we also, through our careers, if Emma's ever needed anything, or she's needed a phone call, or she's needed support, I've always given that to her, and vice versa. I would say that our careers have parallel in very different paths, with Emma on the field in a coaching capacity and me now in an administrative role with Major League Soccer and with the NSCAA, but we've always been super supportive of each other.
But I think the key thing that we've been supportive about is when it's going wrong, or when we're not confident, or when we're struggling, or when we don't know how to deal with something. And I think often that's not said or spoken about enough. We deal with it on our own. And I think that's where our friendship has been key. But in order for us to get better at what we're doing, have to be crucially honest about where we need support. And I think we've done that well.
So let's share with the group. We brought 4 of our secrets. We talk about leadership all the time together. So we thought it would be fun to share with you guys some of the things that we've discussed. We have 4 secrets of leadership to share with you guys. I'm going to write this first one on the board. I don't know, you want to talk to me about it while I...
We need to write it first. That might help.
It's going to take me a second to write this.
That's okay. Do you mind if I don't sit? what got us here won't get us there. I live by this. My team go crazy about this. And I'm going to talk about that from the perspective of being in charge of high performance teams a lot of my career. And then there's always that assumption that what got you to that point will get you to the next point. But it's so crucial to evolve. And I'll give you an example. My team won the double. In England, that's a cup competition in the league. And I remember at the end of the season saying to my staff, whatever happens, when we go into next year, we have to think differently about how we are going to go to the next level, because oppositions know how we play. There's obviously more, at my level, there's more and more professionalism involved, so they can predict our way of playing, they can identify the patterns within our play, that we have to evolve what we're doing. But there's a challenge with that, because humans are creatures of habit. So being able to turn around and challenge human behaviour takes time, because often players will say, why are we changing it, coach? It works. Why are we doing that? That's got us to winning the double. Why would we mix that up? So that becomes, for me, the key behind everything. I think that a key secret to leadership is that you've got to be in a position to keep challenging human behaviour and habit, and also take risk. Take that risk. Sometimes that means, I was just listening to Lynn earlier, you have to put yourself out on a limb to say, you have to be prepared when everything's going against you, including your group. Yes, it's important to create the buy-in around that, but be able to take the risks so that you can create the desired outcome, and that your opponent, whoever that may be, finds it hard to keep pace with you.
Let me give you an example. At Major League Soccer, I'm our Vice President of Social Media and CRM. I've done social media for a very, very long time. And in 2015, the last day of the MLS season is called Decision Day. All of our teams play at the same time. And in 2015, we said, what is the social media platform that really works in a real-time context to help elevate the conversation all at the same time? Twitter, right? A lot of us are on Twitter. We said, let's partner with Twitter and do something so spectacular that it elevates the level of conversation, not only in the US, but around the world, around the last day of the MLS season, help try and drive awareness and excitement going into the playoffs. It was awesome. There was so much press and media and Twitter, and all of our fans were into it. It was incredible. 2016 rolls around and we said, that last year was great. Is Twitter the right platform now? Or is Snapchat the right platform? Or is Facebook the right platform? Should we be on all of them or none of them? And at the end of the day, we said, you know what, let's take a risk, let's go Snapchat. And we went deep with Snapchat, with geo-filters and geolocation and all kinds of different elements. Who here's on Snapchat? Right. So we went really deep with Snapchat, and in turn elevated the conversation in a different way. But it was risky, and it was a little scary, and it challenged our habits and our behaviors of platforms and innovations that we had used in the past. But what we said is, if we're actually going to grow our fan base at Major League Soccer, we need to challenge the status quo. We need to recognize that what got us here last year isn't going to get us there as a league, and it's not going to continue to grow us. So we always need to be challenging. Yes, boss. We've all had successes, right? And everyone in this room has experienced success. And we've probably all experienced some sense of complacency with that. When you get to a place where you know what, I'm doing great, my team is winning, or we have a good social media strategy at Major League Soccer. We're growing fans, people are engaging. Cool, everything's going well. But the moment when you can recognize that and go from a place where we talked about earlier evolution, we can actually say, you know what, I recognize that we're doing well, but let's shake it up. and see how we can evolve, recognize complacency, and do something even bigger and better. That's going to allow you to shape and grow and build from, let me give you an example from MLS. What's my example? Oh, so we've been doing, I'll give you another social media example. I've been running social media there for a very long time. Now recently, I took over our CRM group, which is like email marketing, direct-to-fan messaging, and I said, you know what, we did really great. I'm on Twitter all the time, I can tweet you guys all the time, Amazon, Twitter, Instagram, we can do a lot of one-to-one conversation. But if we're really gonna scale Major League Soccer, if we're really gonna scale and grow, we need to incorporate and include marketing automation in what we're doing, if we're actually gonna reach as many fans as possible. So we said, yeah, we're doing okay, but if we're actually going to create real change and real growth for this league, we need to flip it on its head. You know, it's gonna make some people uncomfortable. It's gonna shake things up, but it's a critical part about actually really evolving and growing past where you're complacent, past where you're doing a good job, to really help you be great.
Well, I think I have to give this one to Sir Alex Ferguson, and he's the master of. He was the master. Sometimes they say the top players moving on from Manchester United was as a result of him keeping the environment on the edge in a place where they could be continually competitive. I have a good example. Last season, the season before last, we'd won the first 5 games of the season. And of course, you know, our creatures of habits, our players, they love their routines, they love everything done a certain way. I decided to follow Mourinho's model. I'm a periodisation expert, which I won't go into now, but the bottom line is that I decided to change and adapt something to follow the same as Jose Mourinho, which is to give the players a day off the day after a game, which is so cultural in England. And I followed that method of playing a game, giving them a day off, then a recovery training day, and then back into the training week. Well, the day after the recovery training day, the players were exhausted. We're winning, we're smashing it, we're doing really well, but I felt we were losing a session a week. And I thought, well, how am I going to get this by the players? They're winning, they're performing well. I think eventually, over the course of the season, there's enough science to suggest that they're going to drop off somewhere because they're accumulating fatigue in their legs. And I decided to flip the day off on the recovery training day. But as I've learned, and it's something that's going to come across more and more here, the key is objectivity. If I approach a group of players and say, hey, listen, I'm changing from this day to the next day, the natural question is why? Why are we doing this? So what I did is I produced the science behind recovery and why I was doing what we were doing, and said that I'm going to break what we're doing in order to push us forward and win. And fortunately for me, because I didn't make it about my opinion, I made it an objective argument and used some analysis around that. We actually performed even better as a result of that change. But you have to be prepared to do that. But I also will say, often this happens in losing moments or negative moments. You know, when a team doesn't do well, we need to change something, we need to change something. I think it's the opposite. I think you need to be in a position to consider that in the up moments, and in the low moments, maybe that involves more consolidation of something, or a simplicity, and more clarity about something. So this is something absolutely my players know, and it keeps the environment on the edge too, knowing that it doesn't get too comfortable, and that you're in positions to use objectivity to change something for the better.
Speaking of objectivity, talk to us about accountability.
Oh, this one is a big favourite of mine, because this is what I always say. When I hear those comments like injuries are bad luck, now impact injuries can be unavoidable. Bad luck is being struck by lightning, right? Bad luck is not a muscle-related injury. And as I often say, for someone in my position, if I have a key player in a team who develops an injury as a result of something that maybe wasn't managed well enough, and the team doesn't get results, I get sacked. Not the physio, not the doctor, not the strength and conditioning coach, me, I get sacked. And so it is crucial that there is a culture of accountability and process. How many of you have read Black Box Thinking in this room? I encourage you to read the book. So in terms of a culture of accountability, in Black Box Thinking, as we know, in a plane there is a black box, so that if there is a crash, in the unlikely event there is going to be a crash, there is a black box to record the conversations between two pilots when they're under pressure, to see if they can think clearly under pressure. And often in the medical profession they don't have similar processes. But as you can well imagine, if a doctor makes an error with us under the knife, it often results in the loss of our lives. And if the medical profession had more of a black box thinking way of working, there would probably be less deaths related to errors and mistakes made. And I think that's what's missing from our profession. A degree of accountability, so that when something happens, there is a process involved that just doesn't accept, well, that's happened because of bad luck. Or no, well, was the player ready for that training load? Why did we do as much as we did? Who's responsible for that? Then a degree of accountability so that the mistake doesn't happen again. Without that, you'll put yourself in a vulnerable position. So it's critical, I think, in positions of leadership, to make sure that you have cultures centred around accountability.
Yeah, I think one thing, you guys all got to meet Lynn Burley-Manuel, our CEO for the NSCAA, in her opening session, and one thing that she's brought to the NSCAA is a sensibility of being member-centric. So we're actually extremely focused today on the data that our members provide us in terms of the experience, how you guys rate this experience today, how your experience is at the convention, what benefits your membership gives you, what you who pay dues to the NSCAA to be a member of our association, what's important to you and what drives value to you. And the accountability of us as the board of directors or as Lynn and our national office staff, the accountability ultimately is to our membership. It's in a different context, clearly, than a coach who may get fired. But if you don't pay your dues, we don't have an association. And that's driven through objectivity and the data that we get back from our members to determine what is the programming that we need to put in place for us to hold ourselves accountable to our membership and delivering the best experience that we possibly can. So it comes to life through different courses, through different educational opportunities, but ultimately it comes back to the business, and we as a board hold Lynn accountable and her staff accountable to ensuring that the experience is as amazing as possible.
That's why process is important, because if I go back to flying the plane, no matter who you work for in an airline, there's only two ways you can fly a plane. Often in coaching, our methodologies differ. You know, in terms of how you remove a kidney from somebody's body, there is a process involved with that. And I found that more and more process and protocol in and around leadership creates that. So therefore, when a physio goes out to create a return to play strategy for a player, they're following a process that's been agreed consensually by all and can be held accountable, as opposed to, hey, listen, those players had really bad luck, they've had 4 hamstrings in 3 weeks. You know, oh, listen, as your top goal scorer, you're going to finish second this year, and you might get sacked. But as I always say to you get sacked, the manager, we get fired. So back to the inner bitch part, hey, listen, that needs to be alive every day, but it needs to be managed appropriately, which I think probably leads to the next part, right? Sorry. Did you say that black pen?
Maybe. Okay. But there's a red one, a blue one, and a green one already.
Never write in red. These are the rules, man.
What are you writing up?
Stay true.
Stay true. And then I talk a lot about, something that we talk a lot about is our guiding principles. What are the things that we as leaders come back to time and time again? And they're really different, actually. Emma and I come from really different points of view on this. And let me share with you how I've come to discover, I call it my essence. a leadership coach for some time, and he had me do an exercise, and I would encourage you to do the same. He said, call up 5 people, and I want you to say to them, when I walk in the room, what do I bring with me? What comes with me when I enter the room? You'll be amazed at the responses you get. Don't call your mom or your dad. Call like peers in the industry, or your friends or your coworkers, and ask them that question: what comes with me when I walk in the room? The answers were very interesting. I will always remember that somebody told me that sunshine enters the room when I do. I thought that was so cool. But we broke it down. We actually took all the words that people said and kind of broke it down into 3 core things that to me are I believe are my essence. And those are positive energy, captivating leadership, and compassionate possibility. And in those moments where I fear going outside the box, or I fear I've struggled to make a decision, or I'm like, oh, I don't know, we did so great on Twitter last year, can we really invest all of our eggs in the Snapchat basket? I say, go back to your essence and be who you are, because leadership isn't about what you do, it's about your way of being and who you are. So that's how that keeps me centered, and that's the way I think about staying true to my guiding principles.
Well, I write values out, leadership values that I share within the environment, people who work for me or players that play for me. It will always start pretty much as at the top is I am a servant to the player. I am a servant to that's what our primary task is. But if I had to take, I have 12 of them, but if I had to whittle them down, good people make great teams. I learned that when I got fired at Chicago. I learned a great lesson about it's not always about having the best players. I had fantastic players. They were the best paper team you could ever imagine. They were brilliant. Together they were disastrous. They were brilliant, apparently, out late at night in Chicago, in the town. I heard they were very good then, together. They never ever brought that to the pitch. And it taught me a really, really valuable lesson as a coach, because from there I got hired by the Western New York Flash as a technical director to put a team together, and I focused on character. It was I didn't care about anything else. That was my starting point, and I was like, this is where I'm going to go. And it leads to my next point. There's a reason we have intuition. Trust it. If something feels off, there's a reason for it. Don't ignore it. I'm not saying you have to react and be emotional about it. I'm saying you have to trust it, you have to listen to it, and you might have to work through it. So the key one's good people make good teams. This one's crucial too. Share success, shoulder blame. Because the point we're going to get to in a minute, in terms of wanting to leave something in a better place, there's nothing worse. I can only talk about my work when you lose a game and you say, you weren't fucking good enough today, and that didn't work, the warm-up wasn't sharp enough, the doctor didn't give us the single worst place. To be in a position to say, I know I should have given a little more tactical detail on the Friday. I wish I'd have made a change directly after half-time. Why didn't I insist on her warming up better than she did? Then that invites others to do that. So, you know, they are my three kids. Trust my instincts, share success, shoulder blame, and good people make good teams.
Emma, what would you say here in our last question here? What would you say is one of the greatest things you've learned in your evolution as a leader?
Get sacked. Get sacked and get your mirror out. As one of my Dutch teachers, Raymond Verheyen, reminds me on a daily basis, make sure you've got a permanent mirror in front of yourself. And tell people the truth. So when you're pissed off at someone in your coaching staff, listen, I set the tone by saying, this is a dressing room environment. So everything stays in here. This is a dressing room environment. We trust each other, we love each other, we're going to push ourselves to the best place possible. By the way, Anson, you didn't do what you said you were going to do this morning. And as a result of that, the session suffered. And and is that acceptable? And you'll find that once you have a mirror out at yourself and then you turn that mirror around both to players or people you work with, it's absolutely critical, because I will do it all the time. Objectivity guides it, because often the case you get into, listen, I have some really smart players. I have one who's a lawyer. Interestingly, I call your name there, Anson, because I could just imagine coaching you. She's just like you. And she will say to me, why? I don't understand. So I've had to create a culture of objective things to put in front of this player, to be in a position to say, look at your work rate in and around this period of the game. Watch this part of the analysis here. Do you think your pressing is as good as you think it is? Oh, okay. And that you don't create subjective argument. But it's also important to remember, you know how easy it is when people get our backs up and they say something. So a player will walk in and say, you're not playing me because I'm not one of your favourites. You don't like me. And Amanda and I had this huge debate. I said you have to be a really good liar to be a good coach. I do believe that, because you have to be in a position. It's like saying the player who's 18, 19 or 20 on your team, you'll often say, this is your role, be patient, put the work in. You know you're thinking, listen, there's 2 or 3 bodies that need to go down before you're getting on the pitch. True. But I need her. I need her this week. So it is critical that within that you have personal bests for players, so that player is being complete. Make sure you get that player's personal best. But the point I was making around objectivity was that removes all the silly arguments that go on between 2 people, and it creates a reference and a framework. And that was the point I was making. When a player or somebody asks you a question, answer the question. Don't answer another question. Answer the question first. So you need to look, you need to listen, you need to learn. Answer the question, and don't let your emotion get in the way. That's mine. You know. What about you, Amanda? What is your
You know, before we actually did this at breakfast, I said, Emma, at the end I'm going to ask you what your greatest strength is as a leader, and I said, don't forget to turn and ask me the same question.
I remember. I made it.
For me, as I've grown as a leader through my career, I think I've figured out how to be in my leadership, who I am in my leadership, and that I belong in the room. I belong in the boardroom. I belong shoulder to shoulder with those people who I've admired and respected along the way, and that I belong in there. My voice is equally as valued. For different reasons, maybe I bring a different perspective and a different point of view, and that's valued. And so I've learned to own that and respect that and be confident in myself as a leader.
That's it.
That's it. Thank you.